Live. Guess we're live. Okay. Hi everyone. Welcome to episode 4 of Gestating Narratives on the Reglow channel. We're here. Hello. We're here. Can you see me? Kind of. Okay. So, welcome to our sewing ritual. And we're going to start episode 4 by grounding into the earth, expanding to the cosmos, taking a deep breath, exhaling. Okay, so we're going to call in all of our healed ancestors, all of our power ancestors. We're going to call on the elements of fire, water, earth, and sky, standing here on the land, on Coast Salish land where I am. And if you would like to, you can write in where you're standing, sitting, where you're existing. And we're going to enter into the plane of imagination together by raising the imagination flag. And this brings us into a place of dreams, a place of spirit and our imagination. All right? So we've been working on this piece, Gestating Narratives, and there's a link in the description below if you want to watch the dance of what the part of the initial transformation process of this outfit. Well, I can hold it up for you where it's at now, but in the link below it's me wearing this, and it shows the process of cutting up multiple garments and weaving them back together again. And it's a process of regenerating materials, emotions, energy in motion. We're going to come over to the sewing machine now. I'm going to get these cameras set up facing the sewing machine because these series is me sharing this process with you and you becoming a part of the story as well. So let's zoom in to the sewing machine space. Yesterday I was the needle. I thought I had the wrong foot, but it's the only foot that I have, so I don't. I was putting the needle in the wrong place, so it was like hitting the foot, and yeah, that was the issue. But we figured it out, and so now we're back. And yeah, so if you have any questions or thoughts or comments, please share. And that's actually a way to raise the value of our process, is by cultivating relationships with each other. I know it's a virtual space. It's a lot different than being in person with people and being in like a sewing circle with people, being in presence. But something I think about is how the dream realm, how the spirit realm transcends time and space. And so anyone who ever sees this, your presence is acknowledged here in this moment, beyond time and space. And so I'm threading the machine, and as I go through this process of sewing, I'm going to go between hand sewing, machine sewing. This is my FAF 130. I just want something that I wrote down yesterday that I wanted to share with you, was where I learned about power ancestors. It was through Darius Mills. And Darius makes these conjurer oils, and he does work with power ancestors. And so yeah, I saw him on the Peace Dealers channel, and he was sharing a meditation. And a meditation around connecting with your power ancestor. This idea that we can call in specific ancestors at specific times in our lives for where we're at. And I just wanted to say that while it came to my mind. And then what I was moving into this space of sewing now with our power ancestors and or whichever ancestors we've called in, whichever ones that you've called in. This is also a space for you to come and create with me, and for this space to kind of be a bridge between our material realm and our imagination, our minds, and a space to process through. And so as I get into what I'm working on, I'm going to be narrating the motions that I'm making in the sewing practice, in the embroidery or textile wearable art practice. I'm going to be narrating what I'm noticing, whether it be like some kind of sewing term or description of a texture or a color or a symbol. And that in itself can serve as an analogy for a reflection. And I think that even just being present with any moment in life can serve as a reflection for where we're at mentally and physically and emotionally and all these different realms, like to whatever capacity it's a part of our or each of our realities, and just acknowledging each of us having our own position, our own realities, and how we can also be reflections of each other when we're present with each other. And so we sow. There's many different things we've prepped to begin our sowing. Just like there's many different things you might have prepared for in your lives. And I want to start with this. We were creating these scallops yesterday that are going to be coming out of the wings and the chest. These beautiful mirrored scallops from the collar that we cut up. And we had hand stitched them, but then we cut them apart. And so I'd like to just reinforce each of them as their own individual scallop now, as each has taken their form. And I want to do that to hold the integrity of their new form in place. So that it's more secure. And I'm just doing a very small stitch and running off. I'm not worrying about any back tacks here. Mostly because I know that each of these start and finish points are going to be enclosed in another stitch at some point, and so there's not going to be direct tension pulling them apart. And so I feel comfortable just making a small stitch and running off. These scallops are shaped almost like half circles as well. I think we were calling them half moons yesterday. The half moons. We just had a new moon in Aries. Are we even stitching? No. It looks like one of our threads came out. Okay. And if you noticed, I was just leaving a trail, and I can cut them all apart later. I think that doing that makes it easier because in that it I am not having to start and stop and clip and tail and trail every single time. And I'm keeping this poem close to me, the poem of, I think, yeah. The poem of, I just had two thoughts going in two different directions, but maybe they were going the same direction and they just crossed paths. But this poem of the dance of this poem, the dance of gestating narratives. So gestating narratives is now a recorded dance. It is now a garment. It's also a poem. And it's more than that, and it's also none of that, because in each moment, in each context, in each breath, all the materials, we're acknowledging their existence and their life as they are. And so I think naming something can give it meaning. It can create a relationship. In that it can create stories. So, gestating narratives, this period of gestation as we experience and for me I feel like I've been reflecting on what it is that I would like to regenerate, but at the same time, I think that what we regenerate can take on a life of their own as well, and I think that that's something to acknowledge and appreciate and hold space for. So in a sense, I also see gestating narratives as just holding space, because the stories that make up each of us I had to get out my ironing board. The stories that make up each of us regenerate. They regenerate themselves. We also have this, so while I wait for the iron to heat up to press out those, oh, the moons were these pieces, the backs of those other parts. And the other parts were like, kind of like orchids. So we have these like wave pieces here. We have a pile of them. And we want to finish their hem. And I'm wondering what thread to use. I think we're gonna switch to white thread. And ooh, there's even this like special white thread that's like really thin and shiny and for embroidery thread, and it makes me think of the embroidery on this white piece, but we're not doing embroidery now, we're just doing hems, so we can just keep what we have. But I will need to wind a new bobbin. The bottom thread that interlocks with the top thread. Balances the tension, if you know what I mean. Salud. Okay, I dropped the black bobbin, winding it back up now to put it in this container with all of these other bobbins, and you know, I don't think this one is gonna work. I remember there is some kind of trick to this bobbin winder. There is some kind of trick. Some kind of trick. Oh. Some kind of trick. And now I'm just unwinding it. Unwind the white thread. And now there's this gray thread that's pretty stuck on there, and we're not going to worry about taking it off right now because it's not really necessary, and hopefully now we can. Ooh! There we go! Oh, you can't quite see, but do you see the, it's right here. This is, oh, it's not quite focusing, but what we got? Says, it's not going. Maybe because it's full. Oh, maybe the machine thinks it's full. Who knows? Okay. to this, only now I feel like, okay, the sky is like moving, but I thought that it was tightened, so how can it be moving? Is it because it's just like a cheap stand? Or is that better? Well, how's that? It's still kind of moving, but whatever. And then this guy. Hello. Okay. So we wound our white bobbin thread, and now we will put the bobbin into the bobbin case, clear off the lint, and thread the top. And this is still moving, but maybe that's just what it's gonna be. Well, that seems all right. And so I realized that the iron's probably heated up by now. It's probably hot and ready and steamy, and yet I am not there. I am focused on hemming the wave. How can a wave be hemmed? How can a wave even have an edge? Maybe it's just a symbol because I need to finish it, otherwise it will continue to unravel. Almost as if the hem stitch were containing it. But how can a wave be contained? I suppose it can. If it's just like a really big ripple. But it feels like, at least as far as the ocean goes, seems like that kind of wave might be more difficult to contain. All right. So what we're gonna do for this hem is first stitch an edge stitch and we're going to use our rainbow scissors to help this go along the curve, and we're just going to stitch, leaving like really close to the edge. and really close to the edge, but not over the edge. And anytime we lift up our foot, we make sure our needle is down. And to hold the fabric in place. And so we're gonna, since it's on a curve, we're just gonna like stitch a little ways, stop, readjust, stitch a little ways, stop, readjust, stitch a little ways, 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 stitch a little ways. Looks like we've come very close to an edge, but the good thing about this stitch is that this is only 1/2 of the roll, and then the other half will go around and will be relatively easier because we'll have a, you'll see then, but we'll have a ridge to follow. So we're gonna go around and like clip very close to our stitches after this. Well, I won't get too far ahead of ourselves. Stitch a little ways, stitch a little ways, stitch a little ways, stitch a little ways. Do 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 do. Do 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 do. Remembering our posture. Ooh, doo, 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 doo. How can I harmonize with the machine? I said that. Did that really come out of my brain? Okay. We're coming up on another curve that requires adjustment. Yes, the curve requires adjustment. Yes, the curve. Yes, the curve. Yes, the curve. Yes, the curve. Yes. Oh, this wavy wave. Oh, the wavy wave. Oh, I've never seen a plaid wave until now. You lifted it. You didn't have the needle in there, and then you lifted the foot, and that's okay. We made it. We made it so far around the wave, tracing around the wave. It may be plaid, but it may be made. The wave, the wave. All right. There's one wave so far. You see it is a wave because the top edge, see this curved shape? This is a curved shape. Like curved, it's a spiral. And then when we uncut it and we untwist it, then this top edge will be stitched in and the bottom edge will ruffle. And it's made from the wave, and it's bridging. Are the scallops the bridge? Yes. The scallops are the bridge between our spirit that soars, a spirit that soars, and our journey with grandmother. Oh, da, da, da. Bird in the sky. Harmonize with the dreamer. Ooh, ooh, ooh. Reflecting on this sovereign creation and knowing a medium, being a medium, what is it that flows through? Was it the sunshine that kissed me in the garden? Was it this light bulb whose matter was mind? Oh, the matter was mind. That's the light bulb. That's a big moment, you know? The moment in recognizing the source of light. You know, I've been humming around these waves and around these curves, and stitching and adjusting, and the pedal is where my right knee is, so pivoting my hip to press on the pedal, and in this I'm reminded of silence. And then I am reminded of the the constant motion. Needle down. Adjust. Oh, goodness, 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 goodness. This last little wave coming around to meet the needle and presser foot, coming around, coming around, coming around, coming around, and moving through the edge. We hold the tension, rolling the tension. Oh, excuse me. Going around our last wave now. Ooh, my right ankle and foot were pointed that whole time with my knee on the middle. Okay, moving over to the ironing board now. We're gonna iron out these waves and we're gonna iron out these orchids. Okay, turning the iron back on. That plane sounds like there's a plane passing. Pressing the wave. We hear the dog. So we've gotten that layer pressed, and now we'll do the other ones. I'm gonna just line up these so that I can iron them all in one sweep. And right now the iron's heating up because it's a cordless iron and it needs to heat up every once in a while when it's being used. Okay. Da-da. Da-da-da-da-da. Letting the iron heat up again. And while it's doing that, another thing we can start doing here is where we stitched the wave, we can go around and trim the edges close to the stitch line, because we're going to fold this over again, and the stitch where the stitch currently is going to create a ridge for us to fold easily as we sew. Might be easier with these smaller scissors, but for now I think the iron's heated up, so yeah, flashes. There are flashes of insight from the plane of the imagination, these spirals of the ocean, shifting form. Once released, they will not return. Where was that clipping? I do not know, but we can start clipping through here. Sounds like the iron is heated up. So as the form was released, sometimes the what brought us to where we're at, sometimes we grow out of that frequency. Sometimes we shift and we find ourselves cultivated in a new space, and we find ourselves released. We find ourselves released, and we find our what was released as well. So now we're going to open each of these up. With the seam allowances face up, and we're going to open and open. And open. And open. And open. Opening and opening. It's funny because I can smell like a combination of hairspray and stale, musky hairspray. Beautiful. Oh, how this ages. How do we age through time? How do we age through time? Okay, and now we're coming back over to the sewing machine. Come along and back over to the sewing machine. Okay. Ho, 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 ho. Salud. Okay. I'm gonna get some water. All right, so now we're gonna go through and trim off this inner edge. Trimming off the inner edge to make a ridge to then fold. Trim the ridge. No, trim the edge to make a ridge. To roll. To ridge to roll. To ridge to roll. The edge. The finished edge. Temporarily finished edge. Dun, 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 dun. Dun, 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 dun. Gong, 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 gong. Gong, 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 gong. Gong, gong. Gong, gong, gong. Dun, 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 dun. Mm-hmm. So what? So what? So, looking at these lines, on this pattern, it's actually like stripes, but it's also kind of a plaid. It's a plaid in the texture, or like a checkered. And then it's also kind of like a stripe, like a blue and white stripe. And now, have you ever looked at the water and noticed how the light moves along the ripples? Almost like cloud watching, but ripple watching. But then also, sometimes the clouds are there too, reflected below the horizon. So here, there's a horizon. It's the horizon, my hand, like the top edge of my hand, or is the horizon the gold pattern on the sewing machine, or is the horizon above the waves, in between the waves and the flower black and white pattern? And what is it to have a symbol of a wave? Is it representing a wave of our memory? Or is it its own matter? Because it's a light wave, so it's present in its own being, reminding us that we are all waves, and this whole outfit is a wave, and the lights in transmitting the image are waves, and they're waving to us. And then I think of this reminding us that we're in a plane of imagination, reminding each other that we are playing along the waves of our imaginations. And trimming the edge. Remembering to breathe into our whole bodies. I'm thinking of how can this be like a love letter to the future where for their own love to soar beyond the horizon. And how would the horizon shift if we noticed how would the horizon shift if it had another name? Ocean. The ocean shifts, but it also has consistency. What is the consistency of this wave-like pattern? Material. What does it consist of? What names? Of the materials? We do not know what we do not know. We grow from where we're at to where we go. The words in our hearts shifting through meaning, through memories, making sounds, listening to the birds, and enveloping being enveloped in wonder, navigating through the patterns, shifting into a form where there's space for all of our aspects, for all of our imaginations. To be present, creating that space for ourselves, within ourselves, through this practice. And ba ba ba, ba ba ba, ba ba ba, ba ba ba, hey oh, ooh, ba ba ba, ooh, ba ba ba, ooh, ba ba ba, ooh, ba ba ba, ooh, ba ba, ooh, ba ba ba, ooh, ba ba ba, ooh, ba ba ba, da da da, da da da, hello, ba ba ba, oh, ba ba ba, ba ba ba, ba ba ba, Generate all the light coming through the curtain, echoes of the sounds, and I don't Okay, coming around the corner. Oh, the song just came into my head. I don't want to sing it. Don't want to sing that to you. Ugh. Okay, now I'm going to imagine different. I'm going to breathe into my body and be present with my body, and I'm going to imagine the sounds present in my body. But first, we're going to feel our feet against the ground. Feeling our head reach up into the sky. Feeling the earth. Lately, when I do this, I've been feeling like a cracking, like in mind, I'll hear like sticks breaking or like a cracking sound. And the feeling that I get is that it's like breaking through this kind of like callus, and it's of awareness and expanding beyond that. And the crows, or there's been a raven in our yard as well. Hearing outside. Cracking through that. Dum, dum. Brum, dum, 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 dum. Brum, dum, 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 dum. Sensing a little bit of hesitation. Gong, 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 gong. Sensing it. Sensing what is on the other side. What is on? What is on the other side? Do, do. Okay, whew. Look at that mark on our thumb. Oh, you can't see it. Oh. Not that one. This ridge. Right there, from our little baby scissors. Okay, we're ready for the next part. Stitch. The next part to stitch, coming around. Coming around, the moon's coming around. Coming around. Da, da, da. Okay. I know, oh, that's where that is. Okay. Got a little place for my scraps to go. I'm gonna stick this bent needle into a place where hopefully I'll remember. That's where the damaged needles go. And, ooh, the oxygen. Like, soak. Okay. A child says, Mama. Okay. Which side should I sew upwards? Let us sew with the white up and placing into loosing in there, okay? And we're gonna hold this flat and go around. There's our first scallop of the evening. In this evening. Okay. One thing I didn't think about was how thinking of like how a collar rolls, how you make a collar roll so that the right side has no seam line on it, and so that seam line is hidden in the under collar. And I'm thinking of these scallops, and I'm thinking of how the under collar's done, and how when I flip these scallops, will that seam be on the edge? And I'm thinking about maybe so how you do that is you like, okay, I don't know if I can really explain it. I think I'd have to show you, but it's like they're different shapes. That's how you do it. Along the edge. So I'll give you an example. If you wanted to sew a collar where had a collar roll so that let's see if we have an example. No, I mean, it's fine if the seam is just right on the edge like that. Like if you make a collar, let's say you sew around the perimeter of the collar, and then you flip it around, and then they're like, the seam is right on the edge of the fold, right? But if I were to, let's say this was a collar, and I would put them right sides together, and I sewed around the edge. Well, right now these are about the same size, but if I wanted it to have a collar roll so that it wasn't on the edge, but it was just slightly off, so that when it was facing, you wouldn't see the edge. And when you flip the collar up, then you would see this kind of like rolled edge. To do that, you'd pretty much need to like trim off 1/8 of an inch, or trim off like a little, however much you want the roll to be, depending on the weight and the like thickness of the material. You trim off the amount of the roll all the way around, and then you sew them together just with you might have to do some easing, no stretching, just easing, and then you sew it. But I'm just gonna go with what we have now. Because also this seam allowance that I'm sewing at, like, another thing is that on curves like this, you might know when you flip them, sometimes you would like cut them in, like, make little slits, like, or you might cut out little triangles to allow the seam allowance to fall and not make the seam all ripply and stuff. And because this length is wider than this length, where it would be folding into once it's flipped around the other way, and so but our seam allowance is very narrow, so we might get away with not having to cut it, because also the material is kind of see-through, and if we made a bunch of cuts in it, we would then be able to see it, but then we might be able to see like a ripple really easily, or maybe not. We'll see when we try to flip it. The moons, the moons, the moons, the moons, the moons. Another thing I'm thinking about is how I need a pen and some water. I would just like to use one pen when sewing these. Just right at the top to help the shape be even. The shape and the evening the shape. Evening. Evening our shape. Evening our shape. Okay. A little row of moons. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We have 3 more moons. 3 more moons to sow. 3 more flowers to grow. But when will enough be enough? When will you insist that it stops? The ever-changing currents of time. The ever-changing currents of our time. Da-da, da-da, wow. Gasping at the distortions, reveling in our broken mirror as the world is shaken. Shaken us to our cores, and we meet them. We meet them, all of them, deep inside, and they meet each other too. At last, they meet each other, and we see clearly when we recognize ooh, 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 ooh. Ooh, 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 ooh. We're going to stitch from this side, looking on the other side for some clarity. half moon. It looks like we got really close to the edge, and so I'm gonna just go over that. A little bit inward. Inspecting all the seams. Each seam gets inspected. Each seam I see each seam I see in the light of our moon, releasing them all from each other as they were held together by a top thread and a bobbin, and now the children are screaming. Outside. La, 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 la. Rolling the edge, reminding to sit up. Bracing the floor with the balls of my feet. Don't, 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 don't. The balls of your feet, brace the balls of your feet. Remember when you stood on your toes. The complications that got in your way, the complications complications we had to face. Something that became complicated, obstructing your clarity. The next spiral you see, the next spiral you see differently. You find your clarity. The next spiral you see the clarity. The clarity. When I look back, and I see the obstruction complicating the layers of my mind, and I see the layers of my mind. How can this be? How can this be the place we've come? How can it be here? Ooh, ooh, ooh. Ooh. Oh, I see a comment. Who is here? Grassy memes. You read in the chat, Sandra Bates, I scanned your barcode finger and it said, sorry, this item is worthless. Oh my gosh. Wow. Looks like we have some people here now. And I'm 2 hours into it. I'm looking at the chat. I didn't notice it before. If anybody hears now, you can say hi. Yeah, I mean, okay, the barcode on my finger is actually not a barcode, but it's funny that you said that it was worthless, or that your scanner said that it was worthless, because I'm questioning the value of it myself, because it's actually 1/8 inch marks, and I'm questioning the value of monetized measurements. But then earlier in this, I was thinking about naming and how naming things create relationship. And so I think it's like, so in that I'm thinking of inches and 1/8 inches and as forms of like communication, but then what is that? I think about how that communication has been a form of colonization, and so then I wonder what the point is. Like, if we just had, what would making look like locally? But I don't, in this, I guess in this space of imagination, we're also recognizing what is here and what is present with us. And so that is also important. Like, I can't erase the inches. I can't erase the inches were created, and that people use inches in a lot of places. A lot of places people don't even like using inches because they don't believe in it, and because the metric system is so much easier. So, you know, maybe that's another reason why. That's another reflection, is that a lot of people believe that inches are worthless, or that eighth inch marks are worthless. I don't know if you're even in here watching anymore to respond. There were a few people in the chat. But that was a funny comment. And yeah, coming around the wave, coming around the wave, around the wave. Okay, there was another comment. I didn't want to read it, but it's from Adam, the 40-year-old, who says, "You have a sexy voice, love me, Guster." And I don't know if that's like some sort of like bot person. Maybe you're a bot, maybe you're Adam, the 40-year-old. But it feels like. What do I even say to that? To that kind of reflection. Maybe I'll just say it is what it is, and that love permeates everything. Coming around the wave. Coming around the wave. All right. All right. We got 2 more waves to go. Hold on, hold on, hold on. Hold on, hold on, hold on. It's like how do we like navigate through with consent? Do you know? How do we create while centered in our sovereignty? Well, here we are, and that's we also each our reflections. So maybe Adam, maybe you maybe that's how you see yourself. Or maybe seeing yourself in that way would open something up for you. Consensual imagination. Consensual imagination. In your thoughts. In your thoughts. Through the journey, through the ripple. Ooh. this is our last wave. Let's heat up the iron while we're here, so that we can move over soon. Ooh. Okay. So, seeing myself as I am, not seeing myself through the eyes of another, for what they see is them. And now we're going to come over to the ironing board. So for each of these moons, we're going to press just flat before we flip. Let me flip this first one and see what happens, so we can decide. Okay. So with the seam on the edge, how does that work? It looks kind of like a snake. But I think that'll work. It's a scallop. Pressing the moon. I'm gonna get some water for the moon. I wonder, I'm thinking about like how I heard about how in in Seattle, there was like women, like when Seattle was kind of like first became Seattle in like the early, in the early 1900s, and there were prostitutes who still had to, like, they were still expected to pay taxes on the money that they made, and because like they couldn't like declare that they were prostitutes, they were like, instead they would put that they were seamstresses. And it makes me think of like what women have been expected to do for free, and what's considered work and what's considered like payable work, and who has the autonomy to decide what that work is going to be, and who has the sovereignty to perform that work and to perform the work that they choose to perform. And so those are things that have come up in my mind, like sewing, like how especially sewing for ourselves, and like making our clothes and remaking from old clothes and stuff, makes me think of all those things. And so for me, doing this is part of a process of like reevaluating and revaluing how do we value these things, and how are they a reflection of our values in themselves. And so yeah, I have all these little flipped scallops now, reflections of themselves, all 9 of them. And so what do scallops represent? Like seafood? Is it seafood? Is it I'm also thinking of like architecture, thinking of like a white picket fence, and then that makes me think of how just different people see that. Like for me, I think of the white picket fence being a symbol of like a false, like an American dream that's misleading and disconnected from its, well, maybe not disconnected from the abuse that it creates in other parts of the world, but like directly involved in that. And so just makes me think that that illusion of the dream comes at a cost. And then I know people who just completely disagree with me too, and because they have different perspectives and they have different lived experience. But at the same time, like, industries of exploitation and compromising values does not help. And so in each of these scallops becomes like a reflection of its own lived experience, being a caller, and then becoming this. So then I think, like, I really don't want to engage with trolls, but then at the same time, am I trolling myself? Or am I just opening myself up to navigating through these conversations? What am I packaging? What's the packaging here? What is the framework? I think it's the present moment. And here we go, spiraling again. Spiraling through the ocean. Okay. Wow. What a beautiful ocean wave. What is beauty? What is knowing? I think for me, beauty is what emerges something that recognizes tenderness, beauty is integrity, beauty is knowing. Alright, I gotta plug my phone in. But I also need my iron plugged in, and so I have an extension cord over here. If we over by the sewing machine, so I think we'll be good until we finish ironing, and then we'll go over to the sewing machine. Okay. Okay. Last one. Wait, we got two more. Okay. Ironing the second role. Which role have you played? Is it a role that you defined? Is it a role that's held space? Is it what is it? Thinking beyond the systems of confinement. What does that even mean unless you realize that's what you are already doing? What does that even mean unless you are reminded of your wholeness? Okay. Now, the next part is coming over to the table. It's a little brighter over here, which is nice for our eyes. Okay. And then I know we just moved that. Plug in our phone, but now we're gonna have to move that over here. Okay. Switching around, okay. Oh, well, hello camera, double camera. I know, let's move this around. There we go. Okay. Okay, so we're thinking about this these front wings. All right. First, just seeing how these might extend along this outline. We have a little bit more here. We might need some extra at some point, so there's that. And then we have our scallops. Do we want them coming out like just the top? Can you see what we're looking at? Okay. So looking at these scallops, and then we have one extra, maybe that comes out the top, but we like this. I think I like that. Ocean comes around. The scallops are towards the top. They'll be sewn in with the water behind them. Scallops. I wonder. It's like they're rising. They're rising up. Okay. Maybe this one will be there in the center. But it's not even really the center. Maybe it'll just be coming out of the neck like that. Let's just pin that there. And we could pin this wave while we're at it. The extra wave. Okay, and then we have each of these coming off. And we have our ocean waves here. So we're gonna need to baste the waves and the scallops. I don't really want this wave here at the neckline to be centered, actually, because this whole thing is like not really centered already. So let's move this. To being off center. Oh, dum 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 dum, I dum 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 dum, I dum dum da ha 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 ha, ooh 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 ooh. Okay. Moving out of the space of being controlled and into a space of making my own decisions. And so should I base the waves to the blue and then baste the scallops to the white? Or should I baste the scallops to the white and then the ocean to the white? I guess the first thing that we know for sure is that we want to baste the scallops to the white. So we can unpin this and start with that. You know, that is what we can do now. All right. I think that I'll just start at the corner where this other scallop meets. Can you see? Yeah. Starting here, and then each one following scallops to the white material, reflecting on the scallops of the collar. I'm calling it like reflecting. I've been calling it reflecting like qualities of each material onto one another, but I think another way I could articulate it is like parts of how do I say this? It's this like visualization in my mind where like each thing becomes, they like become infused with each other, and yeah, it's like they become the design. It's like they're communicating with each other, like each component. Hey, how do I go beyond this light? Oh, like this? Oh, we gotta switch that around. Okay, there's our sewing machine. Let's come over here. We're gonna stitch the scallops on. No, the foot, let's focus on the foot, where we're standing, the path of our stitches. Okay. Going to make the scallop, the edge of the scallop, line up with the edge of the seam line of the neck. It's okay. There's a lot of different edges we're lining up here, but one of them is this like edge of the I guess I don't really have the words because they've not been defined. using the scissors to really, oh, dress is falling behind. Okay. Using the scissors to guide the parts through. And make sure that the edges of each scallop is lined up with the other edge. Scallops. Wow. We just fit across the whole edge. Okay. So I think we're gonna end here today. And so if you can see the scallops each flipping up now, we'll come back to this tomorrow. So thank you everyone for tuning in and being here and being a part of this story and this experience. And so we're going to thank all of our ancestors for guiding us through this place. Thank the elements of fire, water, earth, and air. And we're going to release them, release the plane of imagination. So thank you. Thank all of you. See you tomorrow.
Twitch, we're getting started here. I'm going to go live on YouTube as well.